So I think yes, hopefully everything turns out great. But yes, let's start the first ever podcast of Muskurahat.
Hey.
Okay, so hey guys, hi.
Hi.
Hello.
So I think थोड़ा weird situation है ये because even though this setup is new, something very new for us, हम लोग first time कर रहे हैं ऐसा कुछ, but I think the conversation which we are going to have is like any other coffee conversation in our office, right? हम लोग we keep on talking about these things, but then I realized कि it's good if we put out these conversations, our thought processes out in the world so that people who are working with us virtually, people who are working with us from far, get better to know about the kind of work we are trying to do, something which we are trying to build. At the same time, things which we really feel very strongly about. So I think yes, hopefully everything turns out great. But yes, let's start the first ever podcast of Muskurahat.
Hey.
Cool. So before we properly get into all the things we want to discuss, let's first introduce each other and also speak about what we do at Muskurahat so that people get to know us better. Who's going to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
So, yeah, of course, I'm Samay. I'm heading the crowdfunding department at Muskurahat. I remember starting like as a volunteer, and at one point, I had left also. But when I realized that, okay, no, I want to work with an NGO only, I just stumbled upon. I remember the first conversation also that we had, and I just stumbled upon again Muskurahat again, and from there, just stumbled upon crowdfunding again, and it was just a. And then I, of course, took up the crowdfunding and going on from there.
Like one day he randomly texted me after he left. 2 years after he left Muskurahat as a volunteer, he again messaged me कि Himanshu, I want to work with you again. And I was like, bro, volunteering opportunities check करके बता दो तेरे को. But he was like, no, volunteering नहीं, I want to join full time. I was like, okay, great. Let's come to the office. Let's figure out how we can do this. But yeah, thanks Samay for joining Muskurahat again. Really means a lot.
Thank you for getting Samay to Muskurahat Foundation because
You're welcome.
Guys, stop flattering me. It's the first minute.
That's all the flattery you're getting today.
Okay, who's next?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
So I'm Sneha. I am leading strategy and operations at Muskurahat. It's been, I think, a little over 3 years since I joined. When I joined, the funny thing is I never wanted to come full time. I had a very clear condition that I'll only do consulting and I'll only do part time and I'll give strategy and I'll not get into operations part of it. But as I think with Muskurahat and with Samay stories also, once you're in it, you're in it. You can't be halfway in it.
Yeah.
And 3 years down the line, now I'm doing a lot of more things that I didn't originally start with. So yeah. And all again started with the conversation.
Yeah.
And that kind of led into all of these things.
I think one thing which brings all four of us together is the kind of individual passions we had
Yeah.
about certain things, right? And even though it wasn't really about कि मेरे को नहीं बच्चों के साथ ही काम करना है, I really want to develop children, but somewhere the journey is aligned. And I think that's why we are sitting here today. That's why we are building something like Muskurahat. And I think the reason why we are able to do it from a very pure point of view is because our individual journeys also align.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Punit, what about you?
before that, I wanted to give a biggest shout out to Sneha. I mean, it's not about flattery, honestly, this time, but like I remember I was working with Muskurahat around 2017-18. The first time it was a volunteer run scenario, and I remember discussing deeply with you also, and all of us, we knew that somewhere we want to streamline the learning that we want to impart for our children, and I think that's the major transition that Muskurahat could witness thanks to the effort, the strategy, the consulting that she brought on board. And I think it was a massive leap from where we were to where we are now. And yeah, I mean, kudos to that, guys.
Bro, birthday तेरा है, flatter तू सबको करना है. मतलब okay, so we are.
So now that since we are flattering everyone anyway. So what Punit said was right. The whole streamlining of things and all of that. One of the things that convinced me into it, like to come in full time, was right at the beginning, since it was also the COVID year. We were talking about 2020, right?
Yeah.
And things were shut. We were doing a lot of strategy on paper, but we were not able to implement a lot of things at that time. And then Kolhapur happened.
Yeah.
And Kolhapur was like, there are these 100 kids 100 youth who have lost their jobs, are facing survival issues, and whatever donation ration was coming in is also dwindling. And at that time, it was just this thought that I want to go to Kolhapur to help them find jobs and train them into, being able to find jobs for themselves. And at that time, I was working with two organizations. One was Muskurahat and one was another organization. And I instinctively felt that I should pitch it to Muskurahat first. And I did. I pitched it. And the thing is, with so many years of NGO corporate space experiences, ideas don't get implemented that quickly. It usually takes weeks, months, even if it is something that is, timely and needs to be done very quickly. It still takes a couple of weeks. Yeah, the whole process. But with Muskurahat, हाँ ये करना है, करना है. Okay, we're doing it. We get on like a 4-hour call and chalk out the entire thing, and that is what concretized it for me that I have to come here full time, and then everything sort of fell into place. So,
The speed, Godspeed, guys.
the speed, yeah.
वो बेसिकली तुम लोग आके बोलोगे हिमांशु को करने के लिए 1 महीना चाहिए, मैं बोलेगा नहीं 15 दिन में ही करेंगे. तो ऑटोमेटिकली दैट स्पीड थिंग हैपेंस. सो या आई थिंक ओके पुनीत, नाउ योर टर्न.
Hi, I'm Punit Jain, marketing head at Muskurahat Foundation for almost a year and a half now. I think working for Muskurahat has really made me understand what marketing means to its truest extent, truest core, because the way I was able to, one, with a lot of creative freedom, a lot of freedom in terms of wanting to make decision choices and how I really want to put forward the idea called Muskurahat Foundation and the beauty of it, and the way it flowed through our intern channels, our donor channels, our Instagram, and all of it. It has really broken those walls for me, and I want to thank Muskurahat for that. And I would always express my gratitude by trying to really attach myself to the cause, which is the benefit of these children that we're trying to work for. So many conversations we have with so many people, and everyone you're gonna talk about these ideas to, they are gonna align. They are gonna know what are we talking about. They are gonna know why whatever we're trying to do is so important. And I think as a marketer, honestly, like that's the best job or best seat to be in, because they already are they already know about your ideas, they already want to relate to your ideas, and to them, to just give them that creative punch and present ourselves in front of them, and getting to do that as the head of the organization, it's a privilege, honestly, guys. And yeah, this is a great team to work with.
Like I remember this phase before Punit and after Punit. Like I can see this because we've always had this. See, we always knew who we were, but it was very difficult to put that across to the world.
Yeah.
And I remember this phase after you came, where we finally started putting out in very real sense who we actually are. And that translation has been very visible, especially just after Punit came. And before that, we've struggled with marketing and people who've been marketing with us as well.
True. The thing is, with Muskurahat and what we do and our ideology or vision and strategy, at the core of it is a very simple idea that there are children who come from not so privileged backgrounds who don't have access to quality education, right? At the core of it. Then what we do and everything builds up. But at the core of it is such a simple idea that everybody knows. If you go and tell a person randomly on the street and tell them, सारे बच्चों को अच्छा education नहीं मिलता है, he's like, yeah, I agree. Right? So then that, because it's such a common and overlooked fact, it becomes very difficult to make someone care about it and then propel them into action, which is where the difference in our previous communication team and Punit's team comes into play, is that they understand that simplicity of the whole idea, but also making people care about it and then get some action out of it.
Correct.
Okay, so before we get into the serious stuff, I really, because Children's Day is around the corner and we are planning to launch our first podcast on Children's Day, which is a very special day for us as Muskurahat. I want us to speak about our childhood. How are we as individuals in our childhood? हमारा childhood कैसा था? तू start कर.
Why am I excited? But actually, see, I actually even remember, like, with my childhood, I had a great childhood for sure. Like I've played a lot, but I remember that I had struggles as well because I was never a kid who was bright. I was never a kid who was active, or like, I was always in my own world. That was my personality ever since I was a kid. And you know, even academically I was, and my parents were very carefree, so they would never pressurize me to study or like you should get marks. In fact, I failed my 5th grade as well. And
Who
yeah.
fails 5th grade?
Yeah, I failed my 5th grade. In fact, and actually that is where I started understanding ki, okay, you know what, you whatever you do, you're going to be perceived, and but somewhere, because my mother, like my mother would always believe in me, and she'd be like, your marks will not define you, and she'll give that confidence. Was always that I knew what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And like even in my like ninth, until my 9th grade, I was just failing. I would have like red lines all over my report cards. In my prelims also I failed, but because my mother was always not stressed about me failing and not stressed about my academic scores, I always had this just idea that I can do whatever. If I feel like doing something, I can do it. And I think that's where, like, I just sometime at some point it just clicked that, okay, you know what, I want to study. And I then I realized that I was always an underdog, perceived, like that childhood has always been like that, like like perception would be something else about me, and I do something else. Even with my board scores, like the whole school is shocked. The teachers are calling me and they're like, ये क्या हो रहा है? And my friends are like, कि भाई तू BBM में पूरा दिन chat कर रहा है, क्या कर रहा है तू? मतलब how is this possible? Because they did not expect, only like it was just out of the blue.
Nowhere, yeah.
So that's the highlight of my childhood. I remember being like an underdog, like but having the confidence because of my mother, especially because like she never made me feel like I'm lacking somewhere, or like I'm not the right person, or like not the right kid. And I think that played like a major role in my self-esteem also, and how I perceived myself as well.
ओके ग्रेट ब्रो आई थिंक वो पेरेंट्स का वो रोल बहुत मैटर कर लेता है क्योंकि व्हेन यू आर स्ट्रगलिंग एक्सटर्नली ड्यू टू एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स इन योर चाइल्डहुड इफ यू हैव अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग पेरेंटल सपोर्ट इंटरनली ना आई थिंक इट काइंड ऑफ नलिफाइज एंड देन यू आर गुड टू गो राइट आई थिंक दैट्स अ गुड थिंग टू हैपन कि your parents like they understood you, right? Because I think that's where a lot of us struggle कि हमारे पेरेंट्स को समझ में ही नहीं आता है हम क्या फील कर रहे हैं, right? And that really helps if that understanding is aligned, no, that really helps because then whatever bad things are happening to you externally, whether you're failing in grades, whether you're getting bullied or something, जो भी कुछ बाहर जितनी भी नेगेटिव चीज़ें हो रही है वो बहुत हद तक नलीफाई हो जाती है अगर internally that one person, your mother or your father, really like makes you feel good, right? So yeah,
Because we kind of shape our identity on basis of
yeah,
how
exactly.
validation, what kind of validation we are getting, especially from our parents. And like that just gets cemented, and it comes off as we grow up as well. Like
For
वो
sure.
उनको लगता है कि तुम केपेबल हो तो तुम्हें भी लगता है तुम केपेबल हो, उनको लगता है तुम इनकेपेबल हो तो तुम्हें भी लगता है कि तुम इनकेपेबल हो.
बट गाइज दिस थिंग कि पेरेंट्स का रोल अपने चाइल्डहुड में कितना इन्फ्लुएंस करता है हमारा फ्यूचर. आई मीन आई एम श्योर लाइक यू राइटली सेड कि बहुत सारों को लगता है कि पेरेंट्स मेरे इतना ध्यान नहीं दे रहे, सुन नहीं पा रहे, या
yeah.
मेरे अंदर जो मैं फील कर रहा हूँ वो प्रॉब्ली सुन नहीं पा रहे. दैट इज समवॉट माई एक्सपीरियंस. ऑल्दो डोंट गेट मी रॉन्ग, आई वाज लव्ड एज अ चाइल्ड, आई वाज
Yeah.
पैम्पर्ड अ लॉट, and I've been given everything that I want, and yet if I can segue to my experience of what a
Yeah.
childhood is, see, I don't want to, as we grow up we reflect on our childhood and we realize कि हाँ भाई मेरे childhood में ये चीज़ें proper नहीं थी.
Yes.
But while we are living it, it's just one big journey, right, in itself. And I was a child with mad energy. I used to love drama, I used to love dancing, I used to love singing, I used to love being on a stage. But at the same time, while I had that energy within me, I was the kind of a child who was very introverted. I remember until 7th grade having no friends, eating my tiffin by myself. And I don't know what really got me to that point. Like, I don't know why was I like that. Why was I not able to connect? Or did I even know that I had to go ahead and make friends? So these are the ideas which I felt like didn't come to me. Or, I was not encouraged enough to say, go out and sing on a stage. Or go out and, act. As much as I liked it, I knew I was passionate about it. I remember in 8th grade buying a book just to start writing stories. Because that's where somewhere I felt like I can, become a storyteller. But then nowhere it was encouraged, nor do I think like I got a chance to express that to my parents, to my sister, or any of them. And at the same time, I mean, just very recently, it gets to the intense stuff again. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say that my childhood was a dark ride or whatever, because we come from good backgrounds. We
Yeah.
have had the privilege of having good resources, good parents, good
Yeah.
education, and all of that. And yet, there are situations, scenes which are gonna occur in our lives. And I think when I was in my junior KG grade, you guys won't believe this, but just a month ago, not even a month, 2 weeks ago, this memory triggered me because I woke out of a nightmare. I've discussed this with you.
Yeah.
I spoke to you the very next day about it. I woke out of a nightmare, and I'd screamed, I'd woken myself up, and then this one memory from junior KG triggers, where I remember these three boys who used to bully me. Like our classroom was like benches है, इस side wall है, मैं अंदर की तरफ बैठता था. They wouldn't let me go out, and I somehow felt I got myself comfortable with that situation. I'm talking about this on this podcast over here. My parents don't know about it yet, and that says something about how children, like, often there is a whole world going on inside of
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and I don't even know how any of us are gonna be ever capable to articulate that out or express that or to share that side of us with anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, like childhood being what it was, and I feel like I have since then subconsciously built so many defenses around myself that till date I feel like whenever somebody's trying to attack me in a certain way, even if it's not an attack, I have certain sort of defenses up already. And I ended up bullying someone in my 9th grade. Two of them actually. So, and I don't know, like when I look back is when I realized okay, what I was really doing. We don't have the maturity. We absolutely don't. I have apologized to that person in my 12th grade because that's when I really realized what did I end up doing. And it is a journey. I'm still friends with that person, and she understands that as well. Yet nobody can take that guilt away from me for doing what I did.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, every situations are gonna happen. Instances which we don't even know can occur to someone are gonna happen, and they develop us in certain ways which we do not have any idea about until we start therapy. They start with therapy, and they are trying to dig up our past and any of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my childhood in a nutshell, I guess. Not really, but yeah.
Sneha.
So I think I kind of agree with what Punit is saying, that overall if you look at the entire childhood in a picture, it was not bad. There were a lot of happier things. Of course, we were very privileged in terms of having parents who are taking care of all our needs and access to quality education or access to, good things in life. Not great things, but maybe like enough that you need for a good, happy childhood, right? But there are also moments that define or maybe changed my way of looking later on in life as well, but also affected what kind of a child I was. One thing that keeps coming back to me was throughout my childhood, I felt like I had a point to prove to my parents, to my relatives mostly, right, and to people around. There is a point to prove. It took me a long time to even realize what the source of that feeling was. But it is mainly to do with, how girl child versus boy child thing. Not that my family or anyone was against girl child. They would prefer to have an older, like the elder kid to be a son and the younger kid to be a daughter, which is the ideal picture of a family that you see, like a mother and a father and a elder son and a younger cute sister, right? But it didn't turn out that way. I became the elder girl, right? And in my family, everyone had elder sons, right? So that kind of a bitterness or maybe disappointment that was there was made to feel here and there. Not like they didn't give me education, not like they didn't take care of me or neglected me or anything, but subtly that was there, not by my parents but people around, and that made me feel that I have to prove कि मेरे को बेटा बन के दिखाना पड़ेगा अभी या उसके तरह करना पड़ेगा अभी, right? So I started doing things, rebelling also, like, whether it is taking up things in school, which generally my parents were like, nahi padhai pe dhyan do, ye sab mat karo, right? But taking up those kind of things. And I'm very grateful to my teachers in school though. They were very encouraging. Like obviously they didn't know the backstory of why I want to do all of these things, but they were very encouraging. They picked out my traits of confidence, of being able to speak, and the willpower to do something, right? They picked up on those traits and they encouraged me into doing all of that. Otherwise, wouldn't have been possible. So very that point to prove feeling then translated into being rebel also, right? Then when I became older and when I reached 10th grade, taking decisions for myself. Okay, no, I don't want to do science. It doesn't matter if everyone in my family is doing engineering. I don't want to do it. Doesn't matter I've scored the highest in science. I still don't want to do it, right? I wanted to do arts, but at that time I didn't have much idea about what career options are there in arts, and neither in my family anybody had that. So they were like, arts karke to kya karoge? Like you become a teacher or what? Funny enough, I've become a teacher. But at that time, as a compromise, I took up commerce, right? And then the next step was that you've taken commerce. No, so CA. If not engineer and doctor, then obviously CA. I was like, no. I have kicked and screamed and cried when my father was at the coaching class ka office to take my admission for CACPT bulk course that comes, right?
Combo package.
And I have kicked and screamed and I was like, I told my mom, I will not go, your money will be wasted. I will not go, you cannot physically make me go. And that's when they were like, ठीक है, अभी 11-12 का package ले लो, बाद में CACPT करेंगे. Until that, and I took that time as a challenge to come up with a concrete plan. That is where I found out this course that I want to do and then made a case for it and all of those things. So I think being a rebel and there was a point to prove always. And I think now that's a little less. I think I've proven enough. I don't need to prove anymore, but it took a long time for it.
Was it a conscious thought to want to prove?
Yeah. It was a very clear, and at that age, right, when you're not as mature, right?
Exactly.
But it was a very clear thought that I have to do this. That have to part was very clear. Like, I have to do this. There we had how you have a student council in school, right? You become head boy, head girl and all of that. We also had like a parliamentary system. So you contest elections and people vote for you and then you become prime minister and deputy prime minister and have a cabinet of ministers. I was in 5th. I was like, I'm going to be that. And then I worked towards it. And like, I want to be that. I will do everything. And also slightly unconventional things. I know I was always drawn to unconventional things. Nobody told me that engineering was bad. I just knew that sab log kar rahe, mere ko nahi karna. Right? And nobody told me that, CA mein itne hi log CA bante hai, itne sare logon mein. No, I didn't want to do it.
The rebel.
Like, everyone is doing it, so I don't want to do it. I want to do something else. That
It's
was
basically
always me.
writing your own story. So you always wanted to be the writer of your own story, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where I think I really connect with you on a personal level is because मेरा भी kind of थोड़ा वही scenario था. So my childhood wasn't like, it was a very bittersweet kind of a thing. So basically I only remember, and we all only have our conscious memories post 5th grade, right? Pre 5th grade तो क्या है मतलब हम लोग मिट्टी खाते थे बस. So post 5th grade I clearly remember my 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th standard. It wasn't like I have very dark memories in my head, like it's on that dark negative side, because I wanted to be active, I wanted to speak out, I wanted to do a lot of things in my school, but the thing was that I didn't get better teachers who could connect with me, who could understand what Himanshu wants to do, right? They had a very conventional way of teaching, a very conventional way of managing the class, a very conventional way of creating that whole culture of the class, right? And I couldn't fit in there, and because of that and because of consistently 3 years that thing happened, it kind of, I became like a outlier in my own class, right? Then the students also started misunderstanding me, right? And that led to a lot of teasing, bullying. I wasn't like a good looking kind of I was a fat kid, right? So it led to a lot of things. I was very weak. I couldn't like obviously schools में हाथ वाथ उठते हैं लोगों पे, right? But me as a person, I couldn't raise my hand only, and I would ended up crying a lot, right? In my 7th grade, in my 8th grade. Now if you're in your 7th and 8th grade, no, तू रो दिया ना bro, तो मतलब तेरा और bullying होगा, right? It's that kind of a thing. So
Cry baby scenario.
yeah, so till 8th I really like struggled through my school days, but then finally my 9th standard I got the best teacher I could ever get. And on day one, in the first lecture, when like class introductions happened, I really connected with her. She really connected with me. And then it just flipped, bro. My whole persona, my whole personality, my whole people's perception about me just flipped. And then there was a certain set of peers who couldn't digest the fact that it has been flipped. But it flipped, and how? So like I started being more active in school, taking responsibilities, becoming like a known personality in my school, right? जिनको दूसरे क्लास के बच्चे भी वो बच्चे को जानते हैं, right? And then she asked me to contest elections. हमारे स्कूल में parliamentary system था, but during that period only, like in my family end, my mom and dad really tried their best to give me whatever I needed. But when I was in 9, basically something really bad happened in my house, right? And everything just collapsed from a family point of view. And because I was so young, they couldn't tell me directly that Himanshu, this has happened. They just couldn't do it, right? But I kind of till now I have memories that on that day when this thing happened, मेरे पूरे घर में ऐसा एक थोड़ा सा dark वाला vibe है, and like there are fights, my mom is crying and stuff like that. And it came to a point that 2-3 साल के अंदर I was expected to take care of my own, like be independent and take a few responsibilities of my house. And now when I reflect, I think that I could have done so many different things when this thing happened. But pata nahi, very subconsciously I had this thought ki no, yes, I will stand up for my family, I will take responsibilities of my family, but I'll also not compromise on my dreams. ये पता नहीं कहाँ से मेरे अंदर ये थॉट आया कि मतलब अगर पैसे कमाना ही मोटिव हो जाता है ना लाइफ का, कि फैमिली को देखना है, तो तुम कुछ भी कर लेते हो, राइट? You choose any career, you choose any opportunity which comes your way. But I had this thinking, no, I will do it. Immediately I started working from my 11th grade, and till the time I reached my first year, the 13th standard, I was contributing in my family. Financially. I just not my own experience, but contribute, like becoming like a member, an earning member in my family. And I think I am happy with myself from that point of view कि ये वाले struggle में I didn't compromise on my dreams. I made sure that I'm creating and I'm like basically channelizing my dreams in a manner that this is also achieved, and I'm also chasing my dreams too, and that makes me the most happiest. And that thing only happened because I had that teacher in my 9th standard who could understand me, who really appreciated my dreams, who validated my dreams, who basically upgraded my dreams also to an extent, क्योंकि हम लोग को फुटबॉलर बनने का होता है bro, but नहीं बन सकते हम लोग, right? So and post that everything just changed for me, and I became an happy child. मैं खुश हो गया वापस, जो मैं 3 साल में जो मेरी खुशी चली गई थी ना, मैं वापस खुश हो गया. एंड अब उसी सिनारियो में व्हेन दिस थिंग वाज हैपनिंग, स्कूल के इलेक्शंस थे. अब हमारी स्कूल में ये था कि द पीपल हु गेट इलेक्टेड एज हेड बॉय हेड गर्ल हैड टू बाय अ वाइट यूनिफॉर्म, अ डिफरेंट यूनिफॉर्म, राइट? एंड बिफोर साइनिंग आउट ऑफ द इलेक्शन ओनली माई मॉम सेड कि तुम ये मत कर. And I was very pissed because I knew I had a chance of becoming that person in my school, right? But then my mom just like said ki we will not be able to take that white uniform. And I was like, okay.
How much did it cost?
$1,000 bro. But मम्मी का वो वाला भी था कि एक तो पैसे कम है, ऐसा नहीं कि पैसे नहीं है, बट
Of
इधर नहीं
course,
डालना.
of course.
Right, so
Still, like, just like 1,000 रुपए के लिए आज हम सोचते हैं कि भाई हम ऐसे ही खर्च देते हैं यार.
But
Like,
that's the thing, no? In like that uniform, it's not one uniform. You need 2 uniforms
Yeah,
because you're going to wear it throughout the year.
yeah.
So it's an alternative. So it's a
I
cost.
backed off from the election, and my friends only won. But then अब मेरे अंदर तो हेड बॉय का कीड़ा है ना भाई, मेरे पास स्कार्फ नहीं है, राइट? So I started still outperforming myself in extracurriculars, in the management part. I could help my friends in the council to do their stuff and all of these things. So basically मेरे को भले ही head boy नहीं मिला, मेरे दिमाग में मैं head boy था. Right, and that those 9th standard, 10th standard, they really helped me shape what I am today. So I'm really grateful for that teacher who really like उनके वजह से ना मैं खुद को संभाल पाया भाई. And I really give her all the credit of whatever I've achieved in my life to that teacher, because जब ये चीज़ मेरे साथ हो रही थी ना family level पे, I could have compromised on my dreams to another level and I could have gone very far from what I am today. But maybe that would not have given me the satisfaction, the drive to live a life also.
It's like
Right.
angels guiding us, bro.
Yeah.
It's literally like angels.
और ये सब है
guiding
ना,
us.
the thing with childhood is ना that we are so unaware about things. हमारा माइंड का प्रोसेसिंग पावर ही उतना नहीं होता है कि जब ये सारी चीज़ें हो रही है ना, हम शायद कहीं ना कहीं एक्नॉलेज करना भूल जाते हैं, हम शायद कहीं ना कहीं ग्रेटफुलनेस भूल जाते हैं, या हम वो चीज़ों को प्रोसेस करना ही भूल जाते हैं. But then when we grow up and when we think about all of these things in retrospect, I think one, you thinking about your past and analyzing your past also makes you a better person in the present.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in the retrospect, you kind of then feel very grateful and very happy about all of these things, that ki, okay, finally it took the right turn. But maybe tab tak it's a little too late, that you can't go and thank that person, or it's just your life is at a different position now. But I think वो अंदर दिल के अंदर वो gratefulness है ना, तो I think everything falls in place after
Yeah,
that.
That's insane.
It's very clear that we are very lucky to have like very positive influences.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like we don't, like no one realizes that कि okay बच्चे का जो development है, like it's like you are trying to navigate in all
Yeah.
this chaotic world. You're just, as a kid, you don't know much, you're just trying to navigate. Okay,
More
yeah,
than
ऐसे करना,
navigation,
ऐसे
bro, I
करना.
feel like it's just being present in a moment. Like you just,
Yeah.
you
Very
put
natural.
out there, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's to hit you,
Yeah,
man.
and it's
It's
everything,
at
you're
any given
perceiving
point of time.
everything, and like sometimes really bad things happen, sometimes really good things happen.
Yeah,
But at that point, you don't know that it's shaping you
exactly.
and it's cementing you.
Exactly. Like
Or-
I believe this experience, the wanting to, I think the 3 years somewhere, if I'm trying to dissect it, I'll say that those 3 years made some impact on you wanting to go out and outperform and wanting to just like be that head boy in your head. That's a great attitude to have, man.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
for anybody to take that attitude in, it takes some sort of, a psychologist will say, भाई tenacious mind है ये, बहुत बहुत मतलब strong mind लेके चल रहा है भाई. But you didn't know that, any of that. Like,
Yeah.
it was just you in that moment and you went ahead and did it. And
Yeah.
I think it's applauding. I think it's inspiring. I think, I don't know how people can inculcate it within themselves, but I think the influences is the right.
The thing is, with influences, there are negative influences also at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And that also, like for a kid, they don't know if this is positive or this is negative.
Yeah.
They're just going,
Yeah.
like you said, with the flow. And the problem is when negative influences, in the very worst of the situations in your childhood, if you have a negative influence in that moment, it can take you in like very wrong
It's
direction.
ruined, man.
Yeah.
And then like when you're an adult, everyone's judging you कि ये खराब
He
है,
said
वो
it
खराब है.
himself, right? Like life could have been different if
Very
it
different,
not
bro,
for
very
that
different.
teacher and
Exactly.
that influence.
Maybe
coming
I
in
could
his
have
life.
become an engineer. Very different.
Wouldn't be so bad, actually.
No, but talking about negative influences, right? There are many different kinds of influences when we were also kids, right? One is your peer group.
Yeah.
Very commonly, if they are more notorious or they are not, chasing some goal or anything and just want to while their time away and do masti and all of those things, then it is very possible for you also to navigate and
100%.
kind of
Yeah.
steer towards that direction. But then there are other negative influences which we don't call negative influences. Your family, your parents. A lot of times, because as kids, we don't agree to what our parents say always, right?
Yeah.
And we also kind of like, we don't know that whatever they are saying is for the good of us.
Yeah.
We kind of start saying, ये तो फिर मेरे पे restrictions आ रहा है.
Correct.
You are not letting me do this thing when I want to do it. My parents are being very unfair and all of those things. So we don't tend to listen to our parents
Yeah.
as kids. But with teachers, and just building up on Himanshu's point, we kind of know as children that teachers don't have a vested interest in us or a selfish interest in us, right? Because उनका हमारा कुछ relation नहीं है. They are not our family. They are not our siblings or relatives or anything. They are a teacher, right? And हम class में जाते हैं वो हमें चीज़ें सिखाते हैं, right? That is the relation. That we go to their class and they teach us good things, and then we all have our favorite teachers and all of those things, right? Because they are telling you something that you want to know, and if when they tell you something to improve on, which your parents would also say, you won't listen to them, but you will listen to your teacher, right? And that is the biggest role model that we have when we are children, is that the influence of teachers that we have, because we listen to them, and then how that teacher shapes you matters a lot, because there might be some teachers, if you are being a rebel, or if you are who can talk down to you, who can reprimand you for something, or just scream at you in a classroom, right? And that is a very humiliating feeling in a class full of 50 children.
For a kid,
For a
especially.
kid, and especially when you've not done something. Remember when we are sitting on a bench and your partner is talking, but teacher catches you and then screams at you in front of the entire class. That feeling is more worse, because मैंने तो कुछ किया ही नहीं था, फिर भी मुझे डांट पड़ी. अब now the teacher hates me, right? So where you have those teachers as well, but then you have teachers who encourage you, who look at that one point, which may not be academic related also, right? It can be just a leadership quality or a communication quality or something of that sort, and put you up on that. And then they don't do much. It's not like they are holding your hand through the whole process, but they give you that nudge, and that nudge becomes a very defining point for how your life.
7th grade, my AV room teacher, massive crush on her, okay? Massive one, and she calls me out like for whatever reason, I don't know why, but she brought me next to the table and she called me cute in front of the entire class. Guys, defining moment.
This is where all this looking in the mirror comes from, I guess.
Yeah, maybe the obsession is stemming from there, but it made me feel so nice. It made me feel so acknowledged in front of the entire class. It made me feel like, okay, in spite of me, and this is the grade where I'm still not talking to anyone. I'm still having my tiffin by myself, and then being called out and acknowledged in front of an entire class. It means a lot. So from that point, I still remember her face as it is. I don't know. I still remember her name for what it is, and I think you're right. They make so much difference, and coming from all these external places also, because family is routine, family is day to day. You're constantly around them. They're talking to you. They're trying to guide you. They'll tell you 10 times, ये मत कर, वो मत कर, ये मत कर, वो मत कर. Like ये तो यही चलता रहता है यहाँ पे. But then the moment you step outside, suddenly it's a free world. It's a bigger world than what you can see or fathom, also for that matter. And then out there are people who somehow will give you these beautiful, cute nudges. And
I don't even remember a single sentence which Vrinda Miss told me in my life. Okay, shout out to Vrinda Miss, by the way. Okay, मेरे को एक sentence नहीं याद bro. उन्होंने मेरे को क्या बोला मेरे को नहीं याद, ठीक है? But I still remember that vibe, that presence, that connection. And I think that really matters, right? It's a lot of small things. Also throughout the year when it happens to you, it kind of basically it molds you as a person, right? Those small things. So I think
But also, like even much younger than that phase, with after 5th. Before that, when we most don't remember things, I feel that's where the family does the real job. That environment is so, because like for example, maybe you will just draw and your parent will tell you, oh क्या मस्त बनाया है, या फिर ये better कर. वो अंदर से एक सीमेंट कर दिया है कि यार उसके ऊपर मैं फिर I will identify with an artist and I'll be हाँ मैं ये करूँगा वो करूँगा, and then you one day actually become an artist. Correct. And like that happening in that early stages of your development is very important, because फिर वो जो 18 साल का बच्चा है ना, वो एक खुद का परसेप्शन लेके चल रहा है इधर उधर के, हाँ मैं ये हूँ या वो हूँ. और अगर वो नेगेटिव होता है ना, तो लाइक वी ऑल्सो सी, एंड आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट अ लॉट ऑफ व्हाट वी डू विद मुस्कुराहट, वी कीप दैट इन माइंड, बिकॉज उन लोग के लिए वो एब्सेंट है और या फिर नेगेटिव भी है. ठीक है, बट what happens is that as they grow up, they also start feeling inferior, and just naturally they start like it's not spoken, but they are like, okay, I don't deserve this. Maybe I
I'm
don't
not
deserve this
good enough.
education.
It's a case
I'm
of
not good
identity
enough.
crisis, bro. Like all in all, it's just that I don't know what to think of myself. I don't know what am I, or maybe I'm just everything that I was told in my childhood before
Correct.
that fourth grade, for that matter.
Yeah.
Just to draw an exact opposite, like this is underprivileged that we're talking about, and then the privileged side of things. My Masi's son, bro, like loaded, right? And the boy is just 4 years old. He is fan of Jordans. He already has 3 pairs. And you should see him pose in pictures. You know, he knows that he's posing. And
Yeah.
he's just 3-4 year old. In school he's taught how to chop at 4 years. So those are the kind of things which really are gonna define what is gonna be like at a particular
The
point. And you can
kid will
see it
become
also.
what?
बेसिकली बिलो 5th ग्रेड में अगर तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स ने तुम्हें ये फील करा देना कि तू हीरो है बॉस, तेरे से बेटर बच्चा जिंदगी में कोई नहीं है,
विराट कोहली बन के निकलेगा.
तू हीरो है, आई थिंक उतना ही काफ़ी है. बिकॉज उसके बाद फिर रिसोर्सेज हो नहीं हो, द चाइल्ड विल ऑलवेज फील कॉन्फिडेंट,
Confident.
and once you feel confident you automatically become a better person in like it helps shape you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it becomes your core memory. Right?
Yeah.
You
Core
keep going
memory.
back to that
Yes.
thing.
कि भले ही मेरे को बाहर वाले मोटा बोल रहे हैं, बट मेरी माँ के नज़रों में तो मैं बहुत ब्यूटीफुल हूँ.
गोलू.
राइट. उतना अगर बिलीफ है ना, एंड आई थिंक उसके अंदर ही थोड़ा थीन लाइन है, बिकॉज वो डिल्यूजनल भी नहीं होना
Yeah.
चाहिए.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yes,
I think Samay's example is a great one for that.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
the way your mother believed in you in spite of failing in 5th grade is
Exactly.
still surprising
Yeah,
to me.
because like
The
according to the
decision was on
world,
her part.
no, I think I'm doing very well because of her,
Yeah.
and because at any point of my life I never felt like, okay, I'm not capable of doing this or that.
Yeah.
Like it was just an assumption that I can do it, and I feel like very lucky kids get that, because when I failed in my 5th grade, everyone was laughing, okay,
Yeah.
and everyone made it like a very big deal.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like it was a very big deal. I was very openly telling I failed because my mother
Yeah.
made me feel that
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like luck,
Yeah.
Luck.
which like a lot of kids would not have. And then
Yeah.
like then when I actually scored highest in my school in like certain subjects, and I scored very well in my 10, my mother was not surprised and I was not surprised,
Yeah.
and the whole world was surprised.
Yeah.
Which is like funny things that like you
It's
know,
like Farhan के अब्बा वाला case, bro. Like Farhan from 3 Idiots, like
Oh, yeah.
अब्बा नहीं मानते भाई. But yeah.
Okay, chalo. Next topic which I wanted to discuss कि okay, now when we have spoken about our childhood, now I want to know कि why are you working for children individually, not from Muskurahat point of view? Why is Sneha working for children? Why is Punit working for children? And is it the thing कि the kind of experiences we had in our childhood, are they motivating us to work for our children or not? So I really want to know that कि तुम लोग मुस्कुराहट में क्यों काम कर रहे हो भाई, basically, right? That why are you working for children?
I think one very common answer is कि like the drive, that insane drive comes because the reason to do it is very real, and we are clear, okay, ये करना है बच्चों के लिए, और ये करने से बहुत खुशी भी मिलती है, like you know, it's a very positive emotion which keeps the motivation in at the lowest points also we are very motivated. I think that one common factor is so there.
Yeah.
Okay, that drive is so strong because it's so
Yeah.
But why is Samay choosing to work for children? Is what I want to know.
For me personally, my very personal experience is that, like you guys also talked, like you know that you are very unconscious with your actions before you realize those
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
And like we discussed, it's where we do those things has come from this whole journey of experiences and influences from childhood, right? And when I realized that, okay, you know what, you have to take responsibility of your actions, you have to like know if you're doing a good impact or a bad impact. At one point I realized it's a lot of bad impact, and for me my instinct was that, you know what, like if I would realize that at this point, like I would want to play a part in building very socially responsible and conscious children.
Yeah.
That is like a very simple answer.
So basically तू तेरा कर्मा बैलेंस करने की कोशिश किया.
Yeah, like in very real sense, and like yeah, like
Yeah.
मतलब एक ऐसा अंदर से instinct आया कि like इतना खराब किया है, तो अच्छा करना
Yeah.
बहुत ही
Are you being
ज़रूरी है.
very real right now? Like that was
Yeah.
your thought?
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
intense
Yeah.
thought to have,
Yeah.
man. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I've made X mistakes in my life.
Yeah.
Now let
Yeah.
me try to balance it.
yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even impose that guilt upon yourself for having done
because
those
when things
mistakes?
get real,
Yeah.
you don't have an option and you have to realize
What do you mean
that
by things get real?
like when actions
When
go
you're
really
confronted with it.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
and
Papo
you're
ka prayashit.
prior shit like it's redemption also and like at one point you will become self-aware that okay, you know, how much are you fooling yourself, how much are you fooling the world,
Yeah.
and at that point you will realize ki ha chalo, like, you know, your impact can be positive and negative both.
Yeah.
And then I was my instinct, I did not even thought ki okay, what work will I do in the NGO or what will be my job or what profile will I be working for, what will I be paid, nothing that sort, but just going right into it and just starting. And especially kids, because see kids again, like, you know, now अभी ये आपने देखो, like you must have all noticed कि यार अभी हमारे आसपास भी जो लोग हैं ना, people are becoming more self aware, people are becoming, we are collectively evolving to understand
Yeah.
कि यार हम जो बने हैं अभी, जो भी है ना, वो बचपन से जो हो रहा है, और सब लोग रियलाइज कर रहे हैं आसपास भी, हमारे
Yes.
जनरेशन में भी.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And like we are lucky to be a generation where we are so aware
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like we are so unconventional with the Muskurahat operations also. I feel it's coming from there, of awareness of who we are and individually what we are capable of doing, and why shouldn't we make sure that we are helping others.
It's also very interesting to note with regards to Samay, because he doesn't directly work with children.
Yeah.
Right? He is motivated to work for children. He is working in a lot of ways to enable what we are trying to do.
Yes.
But he doesn't directly work with children, right?
Yeah.
When you work with children, automatically there is that sense of motivation
Yeah.
because you are working directly with them, seeing them every day, interacting with them. So you know the implications, and you don't need to worry about motivation as a factor. Because next day you go to the class, you see the kids, you're motivated.
Yeah.
But with Samay and also by that regard his team, they don't see the children. They see pictures, they see what we are talking about it, but they don't see the children, they don't see the classroom environment. They are talking about a program, but they're not seeing it on a day-to-day basis, right? So having motivation, I think that's a question I want to ask you. Like, how do you keep your motivation? Because you're not seeing it happening.
And also
every
like
day.
our fundraising interns for that matter.
Yeah.
Spread throughout the country.
Because it like streams down as well, no, at some point. Because like when they also realize that okay, we are being very real, like with whatever content piece you make, whatever is going, or while I'm talking, or while he's talking on a video call with our teams,
Yeah.
it like the thing is that we've tried very hard to keep it very real, I guess.
Yeah.
And we are
Authenticity.
knowing कि okay, मैं आज जो कर रहा हूँ, भले ही वो हमारे बच्चों के सामने नहीं हो रहा है,
Yeah.
but उसका क्या ही direct impact है ना, that is always on our mind.
And I think basically me, Samay and Punit, we don't go on ground that
Yeah.
often, right?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's a question for
Three
all
of
three
us,
of you.
yeah.
One thing which really motivates us is कि हम लोग ना थोड़ा ऐसा अनसंग हीरो वाला में वाइब आया था ठीक है कि हम फ्रंट फेस नहीं है बट येस वी आर दोज अनसंग हीरोज कि मुस्कुराहट की ऑफिस में बैठ के 477 बच्चों को इम्पैक्ट करना वो जो एक अलग लेवल का सुकून दे देता है
On a daily level.
ऑन ए डेली
daily
लेवल
level,
राइट
Yeah.
वो बहुत अलग लेवल का सुकून देता है कि यार मैं तो सिर्फ मुस्कुराहट के ऑफिस में बैठा एंड देन माई रिपल इफेक्ट्स ऑफ द वर्क आई एम डूइंग
Yeah.
it's directly having so much tangibly impacting so many children and it will keep on growing, right? And I think that is one of the biggest factor that keeps us going, like
I think
Yeah.
for me it was, you know, when 2017 when I joined Muskurahat, bro, I think I liked being not on ground. You know, I liked the idea that I'm sitting inside an office because somewhere I relate to that idea of, you know, how things should scale, run, become bigger, and ideas should actualize.
Yeah.
And I loved the fact that we were doing things to bring in money, bring in funds, bring in resources to help our children the way we were able to.
Correct.
And that was a massive motivation. Like I know I've bragged about it. I know I've been in social circles with my parents and all of them, and I've told them कि हम ऐसा करते हैं. Like आपकी idea क्या है social worker की खाना बांटना ना, मेरा वो नहीं है. मैं पैसे पैसे कमाता हूँ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए जिससे हम बच्चों को हेल्प करवा पाते हैं यार.
Yeah.
और दैट इज बिगर बिकॉज it's like a structure that we are building. There is an
Yeah.
operation team separate, there's a crowdfunding team separately operating, there's a marketing team operating, and three of them are somehow trying to meet that one big objective, and the two of them don't even have to directly go on ground and meet
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But it's a corporate like structure. Like
Yeah.
not a lot of NGOs are thinking that way. Not a lot of NGOs are trying to, I don't know man, like I don't know about the back end scenes of them whatsoever, but still like somewhere it feels like our structure, our system somehow makes a lot more sense because everybody's doing what they're expert at. Everybody is sort of bringing their expertise to where it really belongs.
Yeah.
अगर मैं वहाँ जाके बच्चों को पढ़ाना चालू कर दूंगा, मैं एक बार गया वो ग्रेविटी पढ़ाई बहुत खुश हुआ, बट मेरे को पता है मैं वो रोज रोज नहीं कर पाऊंगा. मैं पता है मैं उनको मैं इम्पैक्ट ही नहीं क्रिएट कर पाऊंगा उनके लिए उस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. बट आई कैन क्रिएट एन इम्पैक्ट ऑन द अदर एंड व्हेन आई एम ट्राइंग टू डू व्हाट आई एम रियली गुड एट फॉर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन.
Yeah.
Like I said, marketing Muskurahat has been a privilege because it has broken those barriers for me. The moment we're doing this podcast right now, there is such deep context to it.
Yeah.
It is months of conversations and not just coffee room conversations, man. All the meetings, all the strategizing that we've done,
Yeah.
all of it is piling up and it's coming to this point. And it's absolutely non-conventional for any NGO also to do this because I mean, look at the ideas that we're talking about. I'm really proud of us, by the way, right now, that we are able to talk about such things. The ideas are really flowing the way they're supposed to. And that's a motivation, honestly.
I think that's how social work is also looking right now, right?
Yeah.
As he said, social work is not what our parents or the previous generation, in fact a lot of current generation is also thinking एक जाके खाना बांटो, कपड़े बांटो, कि घर के I mean we get so many of these donation calls that you know and especially around Diwali because Diwali की साफ सफाई हो रही है, we get like you know we are going to do a donation drive in our office and everybody is going to come in and give things that they you know for the kids, and which will be random things of books that the kids will not read, clothes that the kids that it will not fit our kids, you know, broken toys and used things and all of those things, and they feel that this is social work and they feel that you know हमने कुछ अच्छा किया या हमने volunteering की या हमने दान दिया कोई, all of those things. But the other side of looking at it, like if you genuinely want to work in the sector, if you genuinely want to forget working in the sector, if you genuinely want to you know help somebody, there are more ways than giving a meal one time, which will not really help that child or that adult whoever you're giving it to, right? फिर अगला दिन कौन देगा, या तुमने 2 महीना दिया उसको आदत लगा दिया उसके बाद कौन देगा, right? But doing things like, and it's fine if you're like in our setup the core is that a teacher goes on ground and teaches our children, and that is where that effect happens. But to make sure that the teacher is there in the classroom every single day throughout a year and year on year, back end में जो behind the scenes काम करते हैं, that is also social work.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of focus is not given on that. It is given on operations ka team, it is given on teachers, or it is given on healthcare workers who are on ground as the social workers. But the ones who are behind the scene, sitting in an office, figuring out funds kahan se aayega, figuring out communications kaise hoga, accounting, HR, all of these people are also social workers, right?
Yes.
But they don't get that tag.
That's true.
I think people generally misunderstand between the concepts of charity, social work, and philanthropy.
Yeah.
Right, and all of these three, even though they're aligned in a manner, but all of these concepts are completely different, bhai.
Yeah.
Like charity is दान, ठीक है, तुम्हारे मन में जो है तुम वो दान कर रहे हो किसी को, ठीक है. बट सोशल वर्क समाज सेवा, समाज को जो चीज़ की ज़रूरत है तुम उसकी सेवा दे रहे हो उनको. इट्स लाइक सर्विस टू द सोसाइटी, राइट, एंड दैट इज़ मोर nuanced. And I think that requires a lot of investment from from a very structured point of view, right? It is actually like an investment in the society, investment in the future, right? So whenever people think about social work, I think they should treat it like an investment. And it's not only you donating to social work, but if you want to become a social worker or if you want to start a NGO as such, you will have to think about it as an investment in the society, and then it has to be more impact driven. And like I think ये सारे words मेरे को स्नेहा ने आके सिखाया, because उसके पहले हम लोग को ये सारी चीज़ें पता नहीं थी. But it is basically if you give a meal to someone, they don't sleep hungry that night. That is the outcome of the thing which you did for that person, right? But it is not necessarily impact, because उसको कल भी भूख लगने वाली है, और अगर कल तू नहीं गया उसको खाना देने के लिए तो शायद वो भूखा ही सो जाए, right?
There are 3 levels to it, no? Income, impact, out. What there?
Yeah, so input is the action that you give, and output is the immediate thing that
Yeah.
happens, then outcome, and then impact. To give
Yeah.
the same example, if you're giving food to someone, that is the input. Like you've given food
Yeah.
to someone, right? And he got the food. That
Yeah.
is the output. The outcome of it is he was not hungry
That
day.
night.
That night he went with a full stomach. Impact इसमें हो ही नहीं सकता, because unless and until you're doing it every single day, like for till the time that person is alive, you are giving him food,
Yeah.
right? Then that impact, then you can say कि ये this person till the time he was alive, he never went to sleep hungry. That is
Yeah.
impact, right? But in this setup, that doesn't happen, because no one who's donating can ensure that they will give that person food till the end of his time
Yeah.
at all, right? Impact only happens is, okay, you give him food, but you give him food for a certain period of time. In that time, you are equipping that person to be able to fend for himself,
Yeah.
to be able to either find a job, start earning, and get 2 square meals for himself, a roof over his head, all of that. When that happens, that you no longer have to give him meals, that he can, survive by himself, that is the impact.
Yeah.
That
And I think ये वाला जो concept है ना भाई, ये schools में सिखाना चाहिए, because अभी as social workers we are aware, and वो भी मतलब तुम social work का course करोगे ना तभी तुम्हें ये सारे concepts के बारे
School
में,
में सिखाना चाहिए, as in like you mean the input output model? Or-
yeah, the kind of
Action
impact,
consequences,
action consequences वाला thing,
Yeah.
because भाई मतलब 6 साल मैंने मुस्कुराहट रन किया as a young entrepreneur. I didn't know about all of these things. Maybe I was kind of aligned subconsciously.
Yeah.
But I think if all the stakeholders of Muskurahat, our interns, our donors, or our beneficiaries, everyone, if they know about this concept, automatically a lot of thought will come in
Yeah.
about the actions you're taking.
Because it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
It's a very simple model. It's a very simple math. कि
Yeah.
आप यहाँ आज जो कर रहे हो उसका एक ये output हो सकता है, एक
Yes.
outcome हो सकता है और एक impact होगा.
Yeah.
Impact is the final byproduct of whatever comes out of that input.
Yes.
Which is
And
more
it's-
long term
It's
also.
more
It is
long
more
term,
long
it's
term.
more sustainable, and every trend, at least in terms of marketing, business, brands, every trend is inclining towards the sustainable aspect of everything.
For sure.
Clothing, we wanted sustainable. Climate, we wanted to sustain for sure.
Yeah.
And then why not the future of children as well?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
why shouldn't that thinking be applied to the similar lens for over here?
So I think one of the reason why that thinking, I mean, the intent is there. Everyone wants to apply it. It's not
Yeah.
like in the sector or otherwise also. And now a lot of corporates are also like, adopting this model or asking about this model. It is very difficult.
Yeah.
You can, from input to output is very easy. तुमने ये दिया, उसको ये मिला, right? उससे उसको ये हो गया, which is outcome, is also easy. Impact is very difficult, because impact happens
10 years down the
10
line.
years down the line, or 2 years down the line, or after your
Very
intervention.
non-tangible as well, right?
Very
Yes.
non-tangible, and it's very difficult to pinpoint and say कि ये मेरे वजह से impact हुआ. Because in that person's life, someone else is also doing something.
Interventions.
Like the other interventions are also happening. For example, with our kids also, right? We are doing quality education, we are doing values and life skills and mental well-being. But हम दिन के 3 घंटा करते हैं throughout for an entire year and year after year. But the rest hours, the child is also going somewhere. No? He's going to school, he's going to play football or whatever. And he's also learning things from other
Yeah.
places.
Other places
They
as
have
well.
access to phones now also.
Yeah.
Right? So they are learning things from other places. So impact के ऊपर claim करना कि ये मेरे program के वजह से ही हुआ है becomes difficult.
Becomes difficult.
So a lot of times people tend to stop at say output or outcome.
I think मुस्कुराहट में मेरा एंड हमारा स्टार्टिंग से इंटेंशन यही रहा है कि हम इम्पैक्ट ड्रिवन तो है, बट हमें नहीं चाहिए वो इम्पैक्ट के ऊपर क्रेडिट, राइट? हम बिलीव करते हैं हमारे इम्पैक्ट में, वी विल मेक श्योर दैट इम्पैक्ट हैपेंस. बट एग्जाम्पल, इफ अ चाइल्ड एट मुस्कुराहट बिकम्स द प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ द कंट्री टुमारो, आई विल नॉट टेक क्रेडिट इन दैट, because that's not something which I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where if all the stakeholders understand this, कि long term is the way forward, because education at the end is a problem solver. If you want to develop India as a country in the next 15 years, you'll have to start investing in education for all the children in the country today.
Yeah.
10 years they spend in school, and after that more 10 years they basically create those ripple effects, and automatically India will develop all the problems, literally all the problems which our country is facing today. If all the children in the country, when all I mean underprivileged children, municipal school children, government school children, village children, tribal children, if all the children get a certain level of education as a standard, India will automatically develop in 20 years.
Yeah.
Regardless of the political
I
party,
think-
regardless of what the government is doing in other things, automatically improve ho jayega.
That is what is missing, right? The
Yeah.
standardization of quality,
Yeah.
right? There are standardization that has happened in textbooks, for example, right? The textbooks that we have right now are far different than what you and I studied when we were in school,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
The textbooks have outcomes, learning outcomes in it. The textbook have
What do you mean by
activities.
learning outcomes?
So, for example, if there's a chapter on gravity, right? And the learning outcome is, what does the child understand? The child understands the meaning of gravity. The child understands where gravity happens and how gravity happens. So there are like 4 or 5 pointers at the end of every chapter.
Sort of a
He-
reporting scenario.
Yeah. So for example, like if you've taught this chapter, the child needs to know this.
Understood.
But this is the learning outcome of this chapter. कि ये समझ में आना चाहिए बच्चे को ये chapter पढ़ने से, right?
Correct.
Which we didn't really have. We only had questions that we had to mug up and then go and write in an exam, right?
Yeah.
But now there are learning outcomes. There's every segment in the textbook has a objective ki why this particular segment is there in that textbook. So the textbook now is made beautifully. The problem is implementation.
Yeah.
Right, the teachers that we have, though amazing teachers and a lot of selfless work that happens for teachers, they don't have the right tools, or their capacity building is not happening, or they are not trained enough, or not kept motivated enough, and a lot of them are distracted. We keep hearing about this in news as well, that teachers in schools spend 50 to 60% of their time doing admin related work.
Yeah.
Election duty.
Election duty, and
Census.
census.
This is government schools you're talking about?
Yeah.
We will only speak about government and
Yeah.
municipal schools, because that's what we represent, right?
Yeah.
So all of our children go to government schools, right? So that is something that we keep seeing, that teachers are not present in the classroom
Yeah.
a lot of times. Or sometimes there is one teacher who is teaching 3-4 grades, all subjects. Impossible,
Yeah.
Equip भी तो होना चाहिए वो उतना करने के लिए.
right? So when that thing is, so the implementation of the textbook only is not happening.
Yeah.
Forget everything else that
Yeah.
now we have the national education policy coming in, and
Models
we
are
have
in place.
everything is in
Yeah.
place. Problem is implementation.
Implementation.
Like India, bro. India का education system on a policy level, on a textbook level, it is the best in the world.
Really?
Nothing can compete, bro. तो
Yeah.
अपनी
Now
कोई
with the
भी
new education policy,
Yeah.
national education policy, we have meeting
Are
a lot
we
of
saying we're
benchmarks.
better than the Scandinavian countries, US and
Scandinavian countries
Scandinavian
are better
country?
because they
Yeah.
are like the quality too is top notch, but it's also that accessibility is to everyone.
yeah.
It's easier
That's what makes
because
them
there
better
are
systems.
less population.
Less
also,
population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
only
also
from
they
a
are little
policy.
more open.
Yeah,
They are
the
a little more
intent,
open.
they're a little more
Yeah.
open.
They are better, maybe
yeah.
better also.
They are
but
better in terms of, because their per capita is higher, right? And
Less population.
income. So the expenses that the government is making per individual
yeah,
in those countries is 100% higher, as opposed to how much
more
is
resources,
coming
less
to,
people.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like again, this will all come down to resources. Even the systems, right? Systems that we're building in our country, and the systems that are functioning. The problem is with the system and not the intent as well.
Yeah.
And the problem is also about the resources.
Yeah.
The resource is the center point of this whole conversation, because like for example, teacher is a resource, right? For example, now if Muskurahat is being able to go deliver this quality of education, like we've had someone as skilled as Sneha, right, who is looking forward to that and who's implementing that, right? And
Yeah.
and it's very skilled, right? And it's a very skilled needed jobs that so
Yeah.
if the resources is the problem, right, and if it's, then the question will come down to, is it like we have more population and less resources?
Yeah.
Not really. Like the allocation of resources and
Is
the
the
system,
problem.
Yeah.
the build,
Yeah.
the way it's built is the problem. So now when we go ahead and we build a system and we start implementing, right? Only with, let's say, only 500 children as of now also, right? It creates, like, it goes in the direction of evolution, because at one point, the more of this happens, the older systems get irrelevant,
Correct.
and they will go out of the picture as well.
Yeah.
So is why, like, someone or like a donor asking us, okay, why shouldn't I go on a weekend and help someone directly? Why should I give you the money, right? Because these systems are very complicated. Like, they don't understand the complication of it. For them, it's like, okay, I want to help someone, I help someone.
And this is an example which I give to a lot of our interns who speak to me directly. Is basically teaching का जो job है ना, वो it is as good as you doing an operation, a doctor doing an operation, right? अब किसी को भी एग्जांपल, किसी को हार्ट का ऑपरेशन कराने का है, डॉक्टर बोल रहा है मेरे को 20 लाख रुपए लगेंगे. कोई डॉक्टर जाके बोलता है ना कि तू रहने दे, मैं ट्राई करता हूँ, तू उठा फूटा कर लूंगा बट मैं कर लूंगा. कोई बोलता नहीं, बिकॉज दे नो द वैल्यू ऑफ अ डॉक्टर एंड द काइंड ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस एंड एक्सपर्टीज अ डॉक्टर ब्रिंग्स ऑन द टेबल, राइट? टीचिंग में क्या है ना भाई, लगता है कि
कोई भी कर सकता है.
but it is actually not true. It's not possible only.
The saying, right? Those who can do, those who can't teach.
Yeah.
Right. That's the worst thing. I hate that saying so much. Right.
Yeah, we have two examples in this same room where teachers have caused the kind of impact they have. Plus, having spoken to our tutors on a tutor meet, like I've interviewed them, right? And
Such an it's so eye-opening.
I had four on four different occasions I had tears in my eyes because the way they were talking about how the children are able to connect with them. When you see on a volunteer level, you go on a Saturday Sunday, मैं 1 महीना करूँगा, 2 महीना करूँगा, probably मेरी certificate हो गया, खत्म हो गया, बात पूरी हो गई वहाँ पे. But when someone is Monday to Saturday level पे, you sitting with them, working with them, trying to talk to them, and it's not just about the education, it's also about the tutors. Our tutors have told in those interviews that the children come and talk to them about everything and anything. Every second scenario of that day, they are coming and sharing with them.
Incredible kind of safe space.
It is a safe space, right?
Incredible
safe space, yeah. And I think that is what
and only a qualified teacher will be able to do that, because if you're a volunteer, no,
or somebody who's training in that area.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, if you're a volunteer, तेरा जिंदगी टीचिंग नहीं है, तेरा जिंदगी इंजीनियरिंग है. एग्जांपल, हम लोग बहुत इंजीनियरिंग को डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, पता नहीं ऑर्गेनिकली निकल रहा है. मे बी क्योंकि इधर इंजीनियरिंग
ना किसी को पढ़ना था.
सो बेसिकली तूने तेरी लाइफ इंजीनियरिंग को डेडिकेट किया है, तू टीचिंग हॉबी के लेवल पे कर रहा है, राइट? साइड गिग लेवल पे कर रहा है, एज कम्पेयर टू टीचर जिसने जिंदगी टीचिंग को दे दी है यार, राइट? उधर ही कितना डिफरेंस आ गया. यू वुड ऑलवेज वांट टू बी अ बेटर इंजीनियर इफ यू हैव डेडिकेटेड योर लाइफ टू इंजीनियरिंग, राइट? अ टीचर विल ऑलवेज वांट टू बिकम अ बेटर टीचर बिकॉज उसकी जिंदगी वो है. तो एक टीचर को एनेबल करो तो ऑटोमेटिकली लाइक it will really
like Sadhguru wouldn't look nice in a rock band. Sadhguru would look nice doing it this way.
He might look nice, but he might not perform.
Just visualizing Sadhguru in a
leather jacket and a nice electronic guitar.
Okay. But one of the things that we tell our interns also, right? If you were in school, would you want a qualified teacher to teach you, or would you want any random person to come in and teach you? Right? That is, and even that's a question we can ask ourselves also. Na? Would you prefer someone who is qualified and knows and is studied about it and coming and teaching you versus कोई substitute teacher आती है जिसको मम्मियों को लेके आते थे ना substitute teacher के लिए, when they used to come in a classroom, they used to not teach us, right? So would you want that, or would you want
one more question that I've heard you asking every time you take? I have this weird obsession of listening to him every time he's taking intern orientation meeting because it gives me context into how interns are. He asks them one thing, that think of one child, like of this one particular child who's really close to you. You know, it could be your masi's son, mama's son, whatever you want to talk about, and just think about them. Now think that every bit of cover and safety and comfort and privilege that is around him is taken away. Now just for a moment sit with the thought and try and understand, will that child be able to survive?
Correct.
And these teachers are playing that role for them in so many ways, and we want so many more of them to play this role for so many more children who are out there, because privilege is a nice thing to have, man. Come on, like we can't deny that whatsoever. The reason why we are able to sit here talk is because certain sort of privilege enabled us to do this. And ideas shouldn't be stopped anywhere, I believe. Like that's where freedom really means freedom.
The question is, what are you doing with that privilege? How are you using that privilege? privilege.
तेरे को पता है बहुत ज़्यादा इसका हिस्टोरिकल एंड स्पिरिचुअल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू भी है टीचिंग एज अ प्रोफेशन को लेके कि लाइक व्हेन यू रीड एनी स्क्रिप्ट राइट, स्पेशली हिंदू में तो बहुत डायरेक्टली लिखा गया है, बट तुम कोई भी रिलीजन के स्क्रिप्चर्स पढ़ोगे ना, you will see that God in whatsoever religion has given the biggest importance to a teacher in every kind of a mythological
Gurudeva,
Yeah,
story.
guru,
Vishnu,
whether you call
yeah,
it guru, whether you call it prophet,
Yeah,
there's always
to a
been someone
teacher,
here.
right? Now, why has God created teachers? And why are teachers more valuable than anything else in that particular sense, right? Because see, जो काम गॉड नहीं कर सकता, जो काम पेरेंट्स नहीं कर सकते, जो काम तेरी माँ नहीं कर सकती, जो काम तेरे पापा नहीं कर सकते तेरे लिए, वो एक टीचर कर सकती है.
And teacher is an identity in itself, no?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
a role in itself.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
mother could be your teacher for that matter,
Yeah.
but to
Yeah.
to look at it from the role of a teacher is
Yeah.
what is
Someone who will guide you in your
Yeah.
life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Like
basically they are literally in a very spiritual sense they are God के अवतार,
Yeah.
राइट. और वही मतलब तुम द्रोणा को देख लो, तुम इन लाइक हर रिलीजन में टीचर्स का एक अलग लेवल का रिस्पेक्ट है.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're talking about the like I mean ancient days of our country before British
Yeah.
British did what they did to
Gurukul
us,
system.
Yeah.
Gurukul system. I
Yeah.
mean the stories about that are fascinating.
Yeah.
I so wish my schooling would have happened that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know for a matter of fact that I didn't learn anything
You know,
valuable.
it's
whole-
not a surprise that like India has always been one of the best education systems, and of course it's not a surprise that civilization happened in Indus
Yeah.
Valley,
Yeah.
right? And like right now we are realizing these things, but over the history of time, like the societies that have really succeeded, like
Yeah.
have really outperformed other societies, are the ones who have focused on the development of the kid
Yeah.
with good teachers.
Focus
Like
on
even
education.
yeah, even like, and even today's society is like a Scandinavian country.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
Yeah.
they are
Yeah.
doing, right?
And the
And-
focus is not pure academics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Education
Yeah.
is in holistic education,
Yeah.
overall
Development.
education.
Values, principles, emotions, all of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like,
values, life skills, mental well-being.
And
that's where it's coming from, bro.
Yeah, but it is really coming.
and
It is,
the
yeah.
whole
Yeah.
Gurukul system also, right? When you leave your home and you go to a Gurukul, you are following that teacher. That teacher is guiding you into
Yeah.
everything to find your purpose in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the intent. It was
intense.
never education. Yes, you're learning shastras and all of those things, which, you're learning maths, you're learning science, you're learning all of those things.
Yeah.
But you're also, in the whole process, trying to figure out what is your purpose in life.
Yeah, man.
That is
That's just
something
it's
that
intense.
we-
किसने
yeah.
आगे पूछा है बचपन से यार कि पर्पस क्या
Purpose क्या
बनाएगा
है
तू
लाइफ
लाइफ
में?
में?
तू क्या बनेगा लाइफ में वो?
हाँ,
But
exactly.
purpose किसी ने नहीं
Purpose
पूछा.
किसी ने नहीं पूछा यार.
Yeah.
Everything, every spiritual journey is about finding that meaning.
Yeah.
It's about the pursuit of that meaning. There are books written. Ikigai
Yeah.
is all about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yet there is no mentioning of that whatsoever in my
Yeah.
at least 16 years of my formative
Yeah.
years. Nobody ever came and talked to me कि भाई तेरे को genuinely क्या करना है या तू मैं अभी just बोला right कि I was passionate about drama. I was
Yeah.
passionate
Yeah.
about acting and stuff like that, but there was no trigger whatsoever. I tried giving an exam to get into direction at FTII.
Yeah.
I flunked badly because I didn't prepare for it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then as a practical move, I chose marketing as my career because I was already working. I'd already done a job in the field. So I was like, till this makes more sense. I'll still be closer to the content area of stuff, and I'll still get to direct and stuff and all of that.
Yeah.
And that's where the settlement happens. But if somebody actually had pushed me,
Yeah.
actually had brought that, like somewhere कोई ना कोई तो trigger आता ना यार. वो trigger
The
missing ही
nudge.
था. हाँ, the nudge.
And the biggest irony is that India as a country has always valued teachers,
Yeah.
right? Has always valued education.
Yeah.
But kahin na kahin, education is never a priority in a general point of view.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Education, अभी मतलब कुछ भी होता है इंडिया में ना, तो there are social causes which go trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
Education is never trending on Twitter, bro.
Hmm.
People don't talk about education,
Hmm.
and I'm not talking about तेरे बच्चे का education. I'm talking about education in general, about our children, the underprivileged children, उनका education in general, when they're having a coffee, when they're having a tea. I think even if, and जब हम लोग इंटर्न से बात करते हैं, इतने सारे डोनर से बात करते हैं, सबके सेम एक्सपीरियंसेस रहे एजुकेशन के साथ, regardless of your privilege. Okay. but we hardly talk about it.
Because if
And
you
the reason-
circle it back to what we started the whole conversation
Yeah.
with, is that we've become so desensitized with the state of education in the country because it is happening so often and we know
Yeah.
it. It is not eliciting any reaction anymore.
No,
Yeah.
It is like
attention
ये
is
तो
also
ऐसा ही
given.
है,
Yeah.
हाँ.
right?
And I think that's the reason why starting a podcast like this was in our mind कि यार बातें करते हैं.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
जो चीज़ों का हमें बातें नहीं हो रही ना, बातें करते हैं. I think
Yeah.
बातें करने से ही काफ़ी ज़्यादा
Yeah.
इम्पैक्ट हो जाएगा.
Yeah.
And anyways हम लोग सिर्फ बात करने वाले लोग तो है नहीं, हम एक्शंस कर रहे
Action
हैं.
करने
अब भी हम
वाले
बात
हैं.
करना चालू कर
Yeah.
रहे हैं.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And genuinely, I do want this to be a platform for, because the another insight for starting this podcast is also
long
coming.
form.
Long form content is also coming from the fact
Yes.
that when we
Yeah.
speak to our interns,
Yeah.
they relate to the ideas that we're trying to put to
Yes.
them in
Yeah.
on such deep levels, and they come up with their own insights into the
Yeah.
situation, into the
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
And this platform should be something where these ideas are actually channeled and somebody gets an opportunity to really address them.
Yeah.
Because हम हर प्रॉब्लम को आग लगा के तो फेंक नहीं सकते ना मार्केट में,
Yeah.
भाई आग लगी है फायर ब्रिगेड बुलाओ.
Yes.
Yeah.
वैसा नहीं हो पाएगा.
नहीं
क्लाइमेट
होगा.
चेंज हो रहा है, बहुत जगह हो रहा है.
Yeah.
दिल्ली में पोल्यूशन हो रहा है, मुंबई वालों को फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है.
नहीं पड़ रहा है.
But at the same time, on an education, for a cause like education, the world is suffering on a larger level.
Yeah.
And it needs to be, it can't be ignored anymore.
And I remember, like, you know, we had at some point realized, like, for NGOs and for social workers and for activists, getting people to act has the way people usually do it was to create a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And we also in one direction thought, okay, okay, you know, we need to create a sense of urgency. But at one point we did realize that these topics that we have to talk about and we
Yeah.
want to share, we don't want people to understand on a surface level.
Yeah.
We want people to pay it
Yeah.
Yeah.
some really good attention, because then you will automatically realize कि मेरे 2 रोटी देने से नहीं बनने वाला है काम.
Yeah.
मेरे
Yeah.
वहाँ पे होने से काम बनने वाला
Yeah.
है, right? And is why like a long form content, or like we are lucky enough to be in a place where like कि अब now people are appreciating more long form
Yeah.
content, and
Yeah.
that is where we are like, okay, we are doing this. there's no
Chalo.
deadlines to
This
this.
brings us to the last segment which I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Is why Children's Day is important, guys. Why, like, because I think बचपन से हमें बताया गया Children's Day is जवाहरलाल नेहरू का बर्थडे, हम चेस्ट पे एक रोज लगा के बच्चों को चॉकलेट्स देते हैं, right? Do you really think that is Children's Day, or what should be Children's Day and why Children's Day is important?
As a child, Children's Day was, we had a party in school. Like we used to all dress nicely, you know. हमारे classroom के speaker पे गाने बजते थे. We used to get
Party हो रही है.
हाँ party yeah, we used to get food and snacks and chocolates, and everyone is like wearing their best clothes and just having a good time. And I used to enjoy that. I miss that innocence of, you know, dressing up in the morning, picking out your clothes a day before, because रोज तो uniform ही पहनते थे, right? So picking out your clothes and making sure and having fun with your friends and everything. That was, and this is like pre-mobiles also. So we don't have any memories of that day. You don't have any, I mean, pictures of that day. It's just all in the memory, and that's what makes it more beautiful. But today, as adults, I think for us, Children's Day is more about acknowledging that they also have a voice in the matter.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to our kids that, you know, all the decisions that are being taken for children are by adults. Whether it is about school, whether it is education, whether it's classes, all of those things are taken by adults, right? But we are not asking the child's opinion in that matter, right? How is he or she liking school? How is he or she liking the whole system that is there? I think this day is more to think about that, to reflect on it, and just to ask children what are they thinking about all of these things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just like a few days ago I watched this TED talk, which was led like a proper TED talk, not a TEDx, and which was led by a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, and she's
Wow.
talking for like 5-7 minutes at max, and she's just telling everyone, "Ke, why should you care about how you are treating your children?" And very simple words, like as a kid would talk, very naturally talking, very simple words she's using, and she's telling us, "Ki, why should you care about us, and why should you care about how you treat us? Because the world you're building, no, right, has a lot to do with how you're treating us at this point.
Yeah.
And what do you have to do? You have to do 5 simple things. You have to talk to us. You have to interact with us. Like such simple ideas, but so
Yeah.
much meaning to what she said. And yeah, like I feel like it's like a reminder to the world as well
Yeah.
of what children need, and why is it important? Because it's shaping the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't honestly have an answer to this, but one thing that is on the top of my mind is that I think it's about making this moment special for them. Like, of all the chaos there is, and all the matters that we know that everybody needs their attention to, and if this is one part of it which is even somewhat ignored, because it's not just a parenting issue. It's not
Yeah.
just about the parents themselves.
Yeah.
It's about the community. It's about the society, the ideas they bring to them, because everyone is influenced at the end of the day by one or the other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that reflection automatically is reflected on the children as well. So let's really take this moment, make them feel special for what they really are, and because they are innocent little cutelings, man.
Yeah.
Like this,
Very cute. For sure.
and like yeah, if you have the power and if you have the understanding and awareness
Yeah.
of guiding them properly, then we
should,
we
right.
must.
You
Yeah.
must.
So
I've seen Himanshu always been excited about Children's Days, always,
Always.
and every year. So like it's
Joyride
very-
happened on Children's Day.
and
no, on Muskurahat anniversary, Joyride happened.
and is why I feel what does he think about Children's Day very interesting.
So basically, yaar, see, a lot of things which I've done with Muskurahat comes from how my childhood went, right? What are the problems which I faced, and then I realized one day कि यार मेरे childhood में इतनी problems रही है, मैं underprivileged नहीं हूँ. I come from privilege, right? I can't imagine what must be happening to that child who is unlucky enough to face this, right? What I have learned through these years is that there's never a point where someone thinks about other children. Okay, you always think about मेरा बच्चा, मेरे family के बच्चे, मेरा छोटा भाई, मेरी छोटी बहन, या मेरा direct sibling, right? But you hardly think about children in general, children in the society. And the thing is, we come with so much privilege कि हम लोग ये भूल जाते हैं कि हमारे आसपास जो दिख रहा है ना, सिर्फ वो इंडिया नहीं है. हम सिर्फ 1% ऑफ द इंडिया को देखते हैं प्रिविलेज में, राइट? बाकी पूरा का पूरा इंडिया. एंड वी ऑलवेज कंप्लेन कि इंडिया एज अ कंट्री शुड ग्रो, व्हाई आर वी नॉट डेवलप्ड, व्हाई आर वी हैविंग सो मेनी प्रॉब्लम्स, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. बट एंड वी थिंक अबाउट आवर ओन चिल्ड्रन, राइट? हम लोगों को IB स्कूल्स में डालेंगे, हम उनको इतनी एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर एक्टिविटीज़, इतना सिक्योर्ड सेफ एनवायरनमेंट देंगे. बट the problem is that if we don't think about the rest 99% of the children, eventually our children when they grow up will only have problems,
Yeah.
right?
that.
So even from a selfless point of view or a selfish point of view, it is hard, like it is now high time that we start thinking about children in general, and especially underprivileged children, because us coming from the privilege, we are the only ones which can help them, which can create solutions for them, right? And हम लोग वो नहीं कर रहे, हम लोग उनके अंदर इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर रहे. अगर मैं मेरे बच्चे को बड़ा करने के लिए एग्जाम्पल 50,000 रुपीज़ अ ईयर स्पेंड करने वाला हूँ, आई हैव टू स्पेंड एटलीस्ट 5,000 a year on that underprivileged child.
Yeah.
From a selfless point of view also, but even if I'm coming from a selfish point of view, then also it makes sense. So Children's Day is a day, I think, which would make us feel about children in general. And it is not about just making them feel good,
Yeah.
right? But thinking about their future,
Yeah.
thinking about their present, thinking about how we can create a better world for them.
Yeah.
Because abhi, like, and that is why, like, हम Muskurahat Foundation है. Like, we could have only distributed sweets and done all of these things to make children happy, because हम लोग मुस्कुराहट है, right? But हमारे लिए मुस्कुराहट का मीनिंग क्या है? कि एक बच्चा एक अच्छा इंसान बन रहा है और वो ज़िंदगी में खुश रह रहा है, राइट? आई थिंक वो वाला पर्सपेक्टिव थिंकिंग करके आई थिंक आवर चिल्ड्रन डिजर्व दैट. आवर चिल्ड्रन डिजर्व अ बेटर वर्ल्ड, एंड आई थिंक only us can do it, bro.
Yeah, man.
As
Totally
youngsters, as people coming from privilege, हम लोग ही
Totally
कर
agree.
सकते हैं वो, और हमारा करना बनता है,
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
राइट?
And we
तू
can't.
सेल्फिश, तू बहुत ज़्यादा सेल्फिश इंसान है ना. मेरे को बहुत लोग बोलते हैं
Hmm.
कि मैं बहुत सेल्फिश इंसान हूँ, मैं इस बारे में नहीं सोचता. अरे तू सेल्फिश इंसान है तो तेरे को तो और सोचना चाहिए, ठीक है? बिकॉज अभी
Irony.
yeah. So I think this is the day which is really close to my heart, because this is the day which I want people to, like, if it is Children's Day, and let's think about our children, bro.
Hmm.
Let's think about how we are creating a world for them.
For them.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I think
More than
great
ideal.
first
Great
podcast.
first
podcast.
I
Yes.
think we did very well.
We did very well.
Thank you so much, guys, for bringing like.
I'm very happy that we did not come prepared.
I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah,
bad.
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been this
Yeah.
if we would have come
Like I
prepared.
remember
Exactly.
him calling me. We had a 1 hour long discussion last
Yeah.
night, alright?
Yeah.
And the jitters are there for sure.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
shouldn't you be jittery,
Jittery.
right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
should be jittery because that just means you really care about
Yeah.
what's to
Yeah.
come out of
Yeah.
it. So I mean, but yeah, I think
But
we
still, like-
sailed.
Yeah, sale because we still did not have like a plan of what we're gonna like. We knew
Yeah.
okay, chalo, these are the topics that we would want to highlight.
Yeah.
But we not like planned. Okay, this is what I'll exactly
The
talk
thing
about.
is, we
the
don't
idea we'll
need
share.
it because we four
It
of
get-
us
yeah.
keep having this
Having this
discussion
on
so
Again and
often.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is more
Just
natural.
flows.
Yeah.
It's
Cool,
about
guys.
time.
Yes.
थैंक यू सो मच. अभी हम लोग ने और चीज़ें प्लान करके रखी है हमारे व्यूअर्स के लिए फॉर आवर फर्स्ट पॉडकास्ट.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll transition into that.
Yes.
ठीक है. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's a wrap.